All right. Hello. Welcome to Life of a Founder. My name is Matthew Sumter, and today I'm here with Alex Thrasher, the founder of MudGear. Before we really get started in our conversation, though, what is one piece of advice that you would give someone who is thinking about starting their own business?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, good question. I think doing any type of new business really requires you to look at the reasons why you're doing it and making sure that you're going into it for the right reasons. Especially if you've never run a business before. A lot of people have ideas about what it's going to be like or fantasies about what being an entrepreneur is all about. And I think the most dangerous ones are folks who think they want to get into it for the celebrity aspect or
Yeah.
the glitz and the glory. And the truth is, there's a lot of work, and there's very little glamour. There's very little glory. If it's something where you're trying to get into this to be in the mix or part of that entrepreneurial scene, I would say go work for a startup or something like
Mm.
that. But the best reason to get into business or to found something is because you really believe in a product or a service that needs to exist in the world, and you think you're the right person to do that.
Okay, great. Yeah, it sounds like you're describing influencers. If you want to go out and become an Instagram model, maybe,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Well, I've heard that's a pretty hard road too. You look at the top 1% that make it, and then all the others that are making $300 a month.
Maybe.
Well,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
but there are definitely some out there that have
Yeah.
cracked the code.
Well, why don't we start by telling me a little bit about your business, where it's at right now, and kind of maybe where you started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a few brands, but really the primary brand is MudGear. And MudGear is a sports apparel brand. We make socks, shirts, tops and bottoms. We actually just came out with our first shoe
Oh,
last week.
nice.
But our market, our customers are people who are into outdoor sports and extreme endurance style things. We really came out of the obstacle course racing world with Spartan Race community, Tough Mudder community, Savage Race, Rugged Maniac, all of those guys, and quickly paired up with the F3 group, which is an outdoor men's boot camp group, and most of our products have gone down that line of durable outdoor sports apparel that you could wear in the gym, but it's made for outside and made to be tough enough for the elements and crawling on the ground and going under the barbed wire and all the stuff that
Yeah.
is a part of that obstacle course race world. We are based in Charlotte, North Carolina, but we have a warehouse that we work with in Mooresville. It's about an hour north of here.
Okay.
But outside of that, for the most part, we're a fairly virtual company. Our team is remote. Everyone mainly works from home, and then we have a few contractors and agencies that we work with.
Okay.
I mean, it's a direct to customer e-commerce model.
Right.
Where we make our products and we sell through our own website, we sell through Amazon. So I mentioned a few brands other than MudGear. I have a second brand, which was an acquisition back in 2019 called Seat Shield. So seatshield.com has its own website, its own Amazon, and it's a product of removable waterproof car seat covers. So
Gotcha. Yeah.
it's a good complement for
Yeah.
MudGear business because we get sweaty and dirty in those events, and this is a product-based business that just put it over your car seat and you stop sweating on your car seats on the way home
Yeah.
from any kind of activity or dirty job. And then the last one, another direct to consumer e-commerce business started recently, is one called Grip Socks, GRIPSOCKS. So again, back in the socks world, and this is mainly a soccer and Pilates style sock that has extra grip, silicone grip on the bottom. A hot little trend in the sock world right now that we're excited to play in with our site at gripsocks.com. So while MudGear is really the main brand, it's a small little portfolio of e-commerce brands that we own and operate.
Yeah. Very cool. It sounds like you're building a little empire here. How long ago did you start this? And were you completely on your own, or did you work with a partner or anyone?
Yeah, this was definitely on my own. and it was just me for a good long while. This was in 2012, right when the obstacle course racing started to take off. I think that was some of the first few years of Spartan Race, and some of the guys I was working out with here in Charlotte, we started to run those together, and just got the bug. Did several that first 12 18 months, and it was during those races that I started to have the business idea that this is not only a cool race, but it's a strong community. Like, the people love to hang out after the race in the festival area and have a beer, talk about the race, and it's like for a full month afterwards, you're telling your war stories about who did what and who passed who along the way, and all of that. So what I noticed was that the larger apparel brands that were sponsoring those types of races, back in those days, you had Reebok sponsoring the Spartan Race, and Tough Mudder was the sponsored by Under Armour. But they weren't really making any products for the sport. It was just the same socks or shirts that you might wear to the gym or play basketball. Yeah, that's great for the mud run as well. But what you would see when you ran them is that at the end of those races, there was a pile of socks and shoes and sometimes shirts that people were just throwing away or discarding because they'd been torn to shreds during the event. So I said, well, the combination of those things, there's not a product really built for this sport. And there's no one addressing this community and speaking to them as a different sports community. That leaves the door open for a grassroots brand that can really understand the community and be a part of it, and make products that are a little bit better than anything that's out there. And I was, ready to tackle that. So that's when, the rare thing has happened where I had a good idea and the right opportunity to go after it at the same time. And just got very excited about trying to make it happen.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, that kind of makes me think about, I'm involved in the CrossFit community as well. And that was kind of a similar, there's a lot of brands popped up out of CrossFit just because they were making specific items for that community, where there weren't a lot of the bigger brands doing that.
Yeah.
At the point, I mean, it's coming now, but yeah, at the point. How did you actually get started? I guess, I mean, you had the idea and you realized, but I mean, what were your first steps?
Yeah. Well, I love talking to other entrepreneurs, and they often ask me that as well. And so one of the top pieces of advice I give to aspiring entrepreneurs is to focus first on the product. Everything you do from that point on will be based upon how good of a job you do creating your first product, and then all the products after that. Sort of going back to what I said originally, there has to be a reason why your business exists in the world and a reason why your product exists in the world. It's got to be, for some reason, better than what's out there. If you're only relying on marketing, you're basically peddling snake oil, and at some point your marketing is going to run out or change, or somebody will be able to market better than you. So, I love to be able to base a business on a product quality that's a little bit differentiated and speaks better to the market, has some features about it that are best in class. And then that's going to drive all sorts of stuff, to include word of mouth marketing that, is the best. You can't even pay for that, but it's the best marketing out there. So that's what I did. I focused first on the product, and I picked out, among, many things we could have made, I picked out socks as what I saw as the best opportunity to get started. And it had a lot of benefits I didn't even realize until a lot later. But what I saw in those races is that the socks people were wearing were falling all around their ankles. They weren't holding their elasticity. And worse than that were the injuries that I was seeing. And this was, one of my good buddies in particular, who loved to do that rope climb and the rope traverse, where, instead of using like a leg over leg method, he would drag his leg across the rope and just give himself the worst rope burn. And it would be, 3 weeks later, he'd have a huge scab on the back of his leg. So I said, well, that's my key right there. I'm going to look for, a tall compression sock that's going to allow you to, run distances, but also have the strength to withstand not only being soaked in water, but to be, drug across a rope or some, nylon or burlap and not fall apart. So that was, the product requirement that I started out with. And I had, designs in my head. I had designs of what I'd like this to look like. I knew it needed to be primarily black because in the mud, not many other colors are going to look great after going through a race like that. So I started shopping it with some sock factories, and I'm fortunate here in North Carolina that we're, one of the last places in the country that has a number of sock factories, between here and Morganton and Hickory, towards the mountains, and connected with several. And so it was knocking on a lot of doors. I got a lot of no's. But I walked into the factory that I'm actually still working with today, and had the good fortune of meeting with a young guy who was one of the sons of the owner, who had just come back to work for the family business. And this was literally maybe his second or third day on the job. They had sent him off to work for a couple of big brands, sports brands, to cut his teeth and, get some outside experience for the family. But he had then, after 5 or 6 years, returned back to work for the family factory, and also start some in-house brands there. So we hit it off. He'd actually run a couple of these obstacle course races himself. He knew what I was talking about. He knew the strength of the community, and maybe he was just young enough, or he was just new enough in the business to give me the time of day and start working with me on a prototype. So we went through some design samples, got a few things made that I was able to put on my feet and take out and see how they performed. Gave them to some of my buddies that were running, and after a few iterations, we had come in on something that we thought was really special and better than what was available in the running stores. And then everything that we did since then has been based on starting with a good, strong, solid first product. So yeah, that's sort of to bring it full circle. It's all about starting with the product and having it be something that needs to exist in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. Finding that need and being able to meet that. When you were getting those from these factories, was it about just, levels of production, you were too small, or was it about they couldn't do what you needed, or what was the pushback you were getting there?
Yeah, probably all of those, multiple times from different places. But yeah, that's one thing you'll run into with factories is that they make their money on volume. And if they're going to work with a really small startup or someone with an idea, it's a cost to them. And I bet for every one person like me that they work with, there's probably 5 or 10 that they decide to give a chance like that, and it doesn't go anywhere. And I guess they're playing sort of the investment game of trying to pick out who's serious, who's going to follow this through. And some of those will work, some of them won't. But I guess your job walking in there is to not convince them that you're going to have you're not going to be their biggest customer next year, but you're worth taking a bet on, and you're serious about making this happen. They probably have a small investment budget to use to try out new concepts, like you might have, and you have to sell them on the business case as much on yourself as well, to be able to at least get a test run of your idea.
So when I think of rucking or, just kind of in high quality socks, I think of like Darn Tough is obviously one of the big leaders. What would differentiate your first product from something like that? You talked about the height and about some of that sort of stuff, but quality wise, how would you say there's a differentiation?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know a lot of this back then, but I've now been around it long enough to know that, we're using the exact same machines as those guys. And if the machines are the same and the operators are well trained, it comes down to the quality of the yarns that you're using, and it comes down to the design, the construction of the sock itself. So the design and the construction really needs to be tailored toward the activity that you're intending it to be used for. So we have rucking socks that are made specifically for rucking. And we put merino wool in the high friction areas around the toe box and in the heel, and we make it a little bit tighter sock around the ankle. They're going to be going long miles, and sometimes you need some more support and strength down there. And that's a little bit different from like a running sock, which is ventilation on the tops, and things become more important there. So there is a little bit more art than science behind some of the design aspect of what you're going to put into your sock and how you're going to construct it to meet the specific needs of the customer base you're going after. But they make a fantastic sock too. I'm not going to tell you that we're doing something light years ahead of what they're doing. We've got our own specific combination of the yarns we like to use and the way we like to put them together that we think is the best out there. But they make a great sock as well.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little more about the business kind of in general or as a whole. How many, you mentioned that you are essentially virtual. How many employees do you employ currently?
Yep, we've got 14 on the team. And then outside of that, we use a number of agencies. We use some consultants on various parts of the business. So in-house, we handle our own customer service. We do our own product development. We do our own inventory planning, velocity management. We do a lot of custom orders as well. We'll make custom socks for clients. We do custom T-shirts and sports apparel for larger groups like the F3 group and the Females in Action group. We've worked with a lot of Spartan teams and things like that. So we have some folks that are focused on custom as well, and some of our wholesale business. All of that internal. Outside the team, over time we've tried a lot of different marketing agencies that might specialize in things like pay-per-click for Google or Facebook Meta ads. Those in particular we're now doing in-house, but we've got some Amazon agency help as well, and Amazon advertising. Those are things that that some groups can specialize in that I have found to be better as a consulting or external to the team.
So you found advertising to pay off. I mean, do you think word of mouth obviously is the best advertisement, but how has advertising helped you out?
Oh, yeah, tremendously. And as an e-commerce company, we are very reliant on online advertising. So early on, Google Ads were the biggest traffic generator for us. And in those days, my goal in life was to be found anytime anybody went online and started to search for, what's the best thing to wear for a Spartan race, or what kind of socks should I wear for Tough Mudder. We wanted to be the top of the search results for that. So we were trying to be there organically. We were creating a lot of content that would help us rank for those types of terms. And then we also were buying pay-per-click advertising through there as well. So that was a lot of our early traffic was just trying to be found in the places where people were searching. And it wasn't long, into it where Amazon started to become, a more popular search engine for products than Google. So people would start their search on Amazon instead of Google. So that led us to, invest in being optimized and being able to be found through Amazon and organically, as well as through Amazon ads, and start to understand that ecosystem as well, probably, starting around 2014, 2015.
Okay. How much did you said you started out with the sock and you kind of did that small. How much did you personally have to kind of put in to get started? Was there a big investment up front? Did you get any loans?
Yeah, well, it definitely felt big. It was, to really get everything up and going, I would put it around 10,000. We did an initial run of socks that got us up to at least a factory minimum. That was a pretty big bet. And then outside of that, you've got some administrative business expenses just to get up and going. Making a filing for your LLC with the state. Buying some accounting software, getting your logo and your brand trademarked, those types of things. So in the very beginning, though, I would say, in order to put just the shell of infrastructure around making the business real, and then making that first little batch of inventory to see how it went, I was probably in about 10 grand.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, that's not that bad for the kind of business you're running right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like a lot to get started, and obviously it
Yeah.
is, but I mean, for a product-based business, that's probably not horrible. So,
Yeah, it's all baby steps, and it was definitely helpful that we just started with one product.
yeah,
And so I think I've seen that kill other brands, is just going too broad, too fat, too quickly. But we started with one main product, which is that tall compression sock. And it wasn't until we made our first batch, and I held my breath to see if we could sell these things.
yeah,
Gave some away as samples, but we started to see some traffic come in from Google. We started to have some folks hit the website, and we were trying to get on podcast and any other type of advertising that was specific to obstacle racing that we could. But yeah, once it started to look like, oh my gosh, we're going to sell through this first batch, we need to start making our second. We went through sort of a progression of, okay, let's take the money that we made on the first batch, and let's use all of it to make twice as many socks the next batch, but just the same ones. And then we were able to sell those. I said, okay, let's do it again. Let's take all that money and throw it back in and make double the batch again. So we started to get up to where the sock factory was they were no longer doing us a favor to make a batch, but it was like, okay, yeah, this is a good order now. Yeah. And so it wasn't until around that point that we started to look at options for, all right, what if we did a second color, or what if we did a second height, and things like that. But yeah, finding that first good product and going deep on that before you go wide with all kinds of variations was really important for us.
yeah, that's some good advice. How hands-on are you currently? Is there kind of a hierarchical structure of management created now, or are you kind of the boss and everyone reports to you? How's that set up right now?
So hands-on is a weird term for me, just thinking about it, because I don't think it's possible that I could be any more hands-on than I am. And it's, maybe at this point starting to be a growth inhibitor. I definitely have hired some fantastic people, and I try to, get out of their way and let them do their thing. But even as I've done that, there's always something else new popping up that, I have to dive deep on and figure out, or, decide that, all right, this Google Ads agency isn't doing the job for us, and I'm going to take that back over for a little while, and then I'm in the weeds for a while till we get it figured out, and back to stable, and then turn it over to someone else. But yeah, I think some people have an idea that in a small business, especially, that maybe there's a way to sort of just be the puppet master and have everything work, and maybe there are some folks who figured out a way to make that happen. But what I've seen in reality, for myself and other business owners that I know that are in sort of the e-commerce and the product and the brand space, is that your hands are going to be really dirty, and you're going to have to work hard and know your products, know your customers, and you may get to a point one day where you can oversee things, but at this point, I don't see that light at the end of the tunnel yet. I'm full in, hands-on all the time, and expect to be that way for a while.
All right. You talked about financially being able to double your orders. Have you been able to bootstrap it all the way along, or have you ever had to do any loans or financing to help you grow, or taken on any kind of partnerships for that?
Yeah, there's a lot in that question. So, and a lot of pieces of advice I would pull out. So I was fortunate that during that time I had a day job, right? I was full-time employed as a career worker, and this was something that I started off as a side hustle, and tried to get some traction on it from the early going. And so one thing that I would advise to folks that have that luxury of having a day job is, if you can figure out how to pursue this as a side hustle or an interest, while you maintain that, and do a good job at that, that's going to really be to your benefit. It's super, super hard to support yourself on a new business until you can get it to sort of a critical velocity that would allow you to pay yourself what you need to replace your income or step away from a day job. So yeah, in those early days when we were just taking all the money from the first batch and throwing it into the next one, I was able to do that because I was still at a day job, and that was just super, super helpful. And my wife works as well, so we got kind of a double safety net there to allow that. So yeah, we are 100% owners. My wife and I. We don't have any outside investors. We do have an EIDL loan that we picked up from the SBA during the pandemic. which helped us stay afloat when all the races in the world were closed down for a couple of years. But that's our only debt with the business, and I was very, very thankful for that during that time. That's a whole nother story. Sort of fighting through all your sales going south all at once. So there's another point in there. I'll remember in a minute, but it's mainly the advice that if you can start it as a side hustle, there's some real benefits to that to get you to the point where you can then cut over. I remember now what it was. Not only having that safety net of sort of your daytime job, but even though you're doing that, I also, the other side of the coin is I also think it's really important to create the discipline early of paying yourself. And I think that's a trap you can get into when you start that way. If you have a day job and you can put all your money into investment business, that's going to be the fastest fuel for your business, is using all of your sales revenue as new inventory or marketing. You won't be able to grow that fast any other time. But the trap is a lot of people do that to the point where they never start paying themselves, and then their ability to jump over and start to do it full time, just gets further and further away if you don't start that from the beginning as a discipline.
Yeah, then that was going to be part of one of my questions, is when you did start paying yourself, and then how long it took you to get to a point where you were able to step away from another job.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you don't work currently anywhere else.
Yeah. So my path was, I call it a 4-year overnight success to quit my job. So it took about exactly 4 years to get to the point that we made that leap. And I say my wife and I were tracking this all along the way. And the way we were looking at it is, all right, well, we know that if you leave your career job, it's going to be a step back financially. And we don't think that you have to get this, your business to the point you can completely replace your current salary and benefits and all those things. But what is that number? Like, what's the floor at which we would be comfortable taking a risk to switch me over to that full time, and then build it up from there? Knowing that this might not be an opportunity that we have again. And while there's risk to it, there could be great reward in being able to put full focus on it. So we had a lot of conversations about it, and we're both very analytical. We both sort of spreadsheeted the whole thing and said, okay, well, we're willing to take a cut, back to here. If you can build a business up where you can pay yourself X, that'll be the time we really say, yeah, let's move you over to this full time. The scary part was when we actually got to that number, that X, and then we said, okay, this is when we said we're going to do this.
now we actually have to.
Yeah, we still think this is the right thing to do. But the fun part was, as scary as it was to do it, when I did make the change, I would say that was one of the second fastest periods of growth that we had in the company. Like, I think that next 6 months to 8 months, we had about 30% growth that I attribute to just being able to, not split my focus between two different places and finally be able to, put it on the business entirely.
Okay, very cool. So you talked a little bit about some of your sponsorships or partnerships that you have with different organizations, races. How did you come across those, or have they all been different? Did you go out to them? Did they organically? I mean, how did that come about?
At least in my industry, the sponsorships and the partnerships, they tend to be, fairly mutually beneficial, in that, a race event is enhanced by having partners involved, and it just adds to the whole atmosphere. You've got sponsored banners up, or there's, drinks at the finish line, or there's the ability for those sponsors to help promote the race and encourage registrations as well. And then the brand, on my side, we get to be associated with a great event. We get to have some brand awareness with those participants. So it's kind of a natural fit, at least in my industry, to do race event sponsorships when we can do that. There's always more events than we can afford to do, so you have to prioritize and pick which ones are the best match for the brand, will give you the best reach and audience. A lot of them do come to us. We get, a lot of inbound requests just coming into our website and the email box about, hey, we got this awesome event, this, rucking club, this obstacle race, all sorts of things. This CrossFit box is doing a competition. We'd love for you guys to be involved. So we try to do as much as we can, and without, if we did all of them, we'd run out of money immediately.
Yeah.
So, we look to do, more and more of the ones that we can that are grassroots. We have tried, huge sponsorships this year, where the official sock of Spartan Race and Tough Mudder.
Yeah.
We've been partners with the Obstacle Course Racing World Championships. Some bigger ones that are out there. Just personally, I enjoy working with more of the grassroots level events. Those folks they're building those sports communities right there locally, and helping them out. It's always very rewarding to work with the smaller events and keep things more on a grassroots level. That's over the years, that those have been some of my favorites.
Talking more about the products a little bit, you talked about your supplier with socks. As you've moved into other things, the shirts, the shoes, have you had to go farther outside, or have you even had to go out of the country to find suppliers, or are you US based for all your
Yeah.
supplies? How's that?
Yeah, good question. So we have a U.S. Factory supply chain preference. We always try to look there first, and there's patriotic reasons for that, but there's also just logistical benefits of not having to ship your goods across the ocean, and not having delays at port, and the customs fees that are involved in those things. Our supply chain is a lot simpler for the products that we make in the U.S. There are things that we found are just not feasible to make here at a price that the customers want to buy it for.
Yeah.
So you take some of our apparel items, our shoes as another example. We're not able to find U.S. factory partners that could produce to the quality that we wanted at the price that we wanted. So
Yeah.
it's that three-legged stool. If you can have it fast, you can have it good quality, or you can have it cheap, but you have to pick two.
Yeah.
And get the right mix for your customer base. So today, we do have a lot of our manufacturing is done in the U.S. We do have a little bit out of India. We have a decent amount out of Vietnam, maybe one or two things out of China, but we've also done a little bit in Latin America, but not currently doing that. But sort of got a education along the way in some of the freight forwarding and shipping and customs and global manufacturing supply chain. Been able to visit a lot of those factories and see what they're like, and they're not like what you think. I think especially the factories we use outside of the country. I've been super surprised at the just the professionalism in those places, and they make you take off your shoes before you walk in because they're spotless, which is a little different from some of the places I've visited here. But we've been lucky to have some great factory partners, regardless of where in the world that we've ended up for those products.
As a product-based company, I'm sure cost of goods sold is a big chunk of your expenses. I mean, what kind of percentage is that? Half of your expenses, or?
It definitely depends on the product and the product category. And I've found, in the e-commerce world, there's a lot of different ways to parse that in terms of what you include in your cost of goods sold. For me, and I've got a little bit of a financial background, and my wife is an accountant, so we like to debate stuff like this and nerd out on it. But to me, to really talk about your cost of goods, you not only need to think about your landed cost of the inventory, so that's your, making the product wherever in the world it's made, paying the customs and the freight, and getting it, on the shelf in the warehouse, ready to ship out in all the packaging. That to me is what I would call a full landed cost. Like all you have to do from here is pick it up and ship it.
Yeah.
Call that the landed cost. And that, on a lot of e-commerce goods would shoot to get that into the 25-30% range of cost to retail sales point. From there, there's a lot of other what I would call direct selling cost that are not traditionally put into COGS, cost of goods sold, but I think ought to be there, especially in the e-commerce world. So in order for us to sell a product, it often will have to go through pay-per-click advertising. So that can be Google or Facebook. And somebody's clicking on that link before they come to buy your product. That's like an automatic discount off the top of you're paying for that lead. And then there's the fulfillment cost. If you're working with a third-party warehouse, there is like a per order or per item charge for pulling that. You've already got the item on the shelf, landed cost, but there's still a cost to pull it off the shelf and put it in an envelope and apply the sticker and get it shipping.
Yeah.
The fulfillment cost, the shipping cost itself. Another one that hides in there that you don't think about is the payment processing cost. You get those reward points on your credit card. Well, it's the business that's paying for that out of the payment processing fees. So that's another 3.5% on
right
top
off the top. Yeah,
right off the top as well. And then as you make things more complicated, you've got some deals you may have done with ambassadors or affiliates that may also have a percentage of the sale that they get as well. So I like to try to bake all of those things in to really understand what's the true direct cost associated with a sale. And you're getting above 50% a lot of times when you put all of those items in. Now, you can make it on an income statement, you can make it look a lot better by putting a lot of those things below the line as operating expenses. But I like to see them up top and just get a true sense for, at that point, you could call it more contribution margin than a profit margin. Contribution margin, after this product goes out the door, what's it really contributing to the gross profits that I can now use for operating expenses?
How would you say that you balance quality versus service versus price?
Quality, service, price. So yeah, that's kind of one of those pick two, and for us, it's going to be quality and service. Like we're not going to be the cheapest pair of socks that you can buy. If you want to get on Amazon or Temu and find a $9 pair of compression socks, you can do that. Yeah. But you're probably not going to get the service, and your quality is questionable at best. So yeah, if I'm going to choose two out of those three, product quality is number one, and then a close second for me is the customer service. We always, from the very beginning, have taken great care of our customers, just gone above and beyond to make things right if anybody ever has a problem. And that's what keeps people coming back, because they know they're going to have a good experience. Even if it doesn't start out that way for some reason, we're going to take care of them.
Okay. Excellent.
And you can't, one last point on that is you cannot provide good service if you're trying to be the low cost provider. There's just no way to do it.
People are expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Labor. Yeah. Have you ever experienced any kind of burnout or considered shutting down selling, just walking away from this?
Fortunately, no more than like a passing thought. I mean, I've had, I've never burned out, but I've had, periods of high stress or high burn throughout the decade or so I've been doing this. And if I try to understand like what drove, what triggered those time periods, often it's not doing enough delegation, finding myself in a spot where, I'm working too much in the business versus on the business. That's one of the barometers that I can use to tell if I'm doing the right things. I don't mind working hard at all. I found that over the years, some of the best growth that we've had in the business is when I've been able to do some deep work, some focused work, and just put my head down and just grind away at something that I know we need to do. But those things tend to be the ones that are new processes, or building something that's a new platform or scale that we can then plug our team into, and it's an ongoing long-term new part of the business that will pay dividends for a long period of time. But something where I can put in that deep level of effort and then slowly extricate myself as we can automate it, systematize it, and put people in place. And then, if I keep myself there too long and start to become more of the operator of those new processes and places, at the same time that I've started to pick up the next new thing and the new shiny object that I'm trying to improve, or new process I'm trying to bring in, you can really stretch yourself too thin. So it's like being really disciplined about, if you're going to commit to do something, recognize that there are other things you need to say no to. So we like to run our business on a small number of big rocks every month, and that comes from like the Traction book from Willick. That you could do anything, but you can't do everything. So prioritizing, picking the few number of things you're going to really focus on for this month, trying to knock those out, and then once you have it up and going, focus on creating a system around it, making it repeatable, and then being able to extricate yourself and bring people in, or agencies in, or consultants in to run it from there. But don't allow yourself to create and have job after job after job after job without handing some of those things off.
Okay. How do you personally measure the success? What's your day-to-day goal when you look back? How do you say it was a good month, it was a good year?
Oh man, so loaded question, but honestly, every day that I get up and get to do this is a good day. I'm grateful every day that I have my own business, and that I work with all of the cool people that we've brought onto the team. It's a job, and it's a lot of work, but it's also I couldn't see myself doing anything else. I find myself sort of permanently unemployable at this point in a traditional sense. Now that I've tasted how sweet it is to kind of be able to have the freedom and flexibility to help direct the company to go in the ways that I think it should go. But I put in a lot of time too in the corporate world, where your day is driven by one phone call to the next phone call, and meeting after meeting after meeting. And it was a change, and a nice change for me to be able to stop doing that, and basically only take the phone calls that I think are meaningful to run the business, or the meetings we have on the calendar are the ones that I think are important. Like the ability to drive your own schedule like that, and help drive a team, just is very rewarding and fulfilling for me. So from that standpoint, I measure success on, do I have to go get a day job or not? Do I have to go get a real job? And thank God, for the last decade or so, I've been able to say, no, I can keep doing this every day. And that's my personal measure of success.
That's a good goal.
As a team, we get, a little more scripted with it. Our goal every year is to try to get towards like a 10% net income. And I'm a big believer in, trying to fit that in from the beginning of the year. If you've got a revenue target for your business, and roughly what your gross margin is, or that contribution margin is, the very next thing that I like to recommend you do is, figure out, well, what do you want your profit to be at the end of the day? What do you want that net income to be? And if it's 10% and your gross margin is 50%, that tells you immediately there's only 40% left to work with. And you're going to have to pay for all of your people and all your marketing, and any travel and anything else out of that 40%. So you can start to make some buckets pretty quickly. But if you don't do that, you'll start, there's a way to spend all that money, and you'll find yourself at the end of the year with zero net income or negative net income. So, I think the ability to pin that number first, and then size your company in a way that it fits the net income you want to generate, is a better way to think about it. And it will help you get there.
I don't need exact numbers, but just how over the 12 years, what has been the growth? I mean, have you doubled every year? And I know it's changed a little bit, probably year to year, but kind of what's that trajectory look like?
It's been a sort of a nice growth from when I started in 2012 up through 2015, 16, 17. Those were what I would call like the highlight years of the obstacle course racing world. That's where the top participation, probably multi-millions of people were running those races every summer, really from March all the way through October, November. So I would say following the growth of that obstacle course racing world, we had our peak years in like 17, 18, 19. And then, we talked about the pandemic. COVID was just a brutal thing for our industry because we were so driven by races. I mean, I think the number one reason people would buy our gear was they just signed up for a race.
Yeah.
And they wanted to train and make sure they had the right equipment for the race. And when those races went away, they lost their reason to come shopping on our website. So our worst year was 20 and 21. The races slowly started coming back. But there were some silver linings in that period because, it forced us to be nimble and creative about where we were going to find our revenue and follow our customers. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest lessons is that, our customers weren't racing. So we had to dig in and find out what they were doing. And we realized that trail running was really taking off, people getting out in the open and away from other people and hitting the trails and hiking, and also rucking, really I started to hear about it around then, people getting out with the heavy backpacks and doing that either solo or in small groups. So it was during that time period that we sort of shifted our focus as well. And we followed our customers into those other, call it parallel sports. And today, we now have a large part of our customer base that is rucking oriented, that is trail running oriented, that we wouldn't have had before the pandemic when we were pretty much only focused on obstacle course racing. And then the other part was custom. We really only started doing custom socks for customers during the pandemic. And it was sort of a pivot where we say, all right, no one's doing races right now, but large companies are wanting to make socks and send them out to their employees at home as a hey, we're still here kind of reminder. So we did a lot of custom sock orders during those days, and we continue to do that now as a additional revenue stream. So 22 23 really 22 really started to build back up, and then 23 for us is when that rucking community started to show even more growth. And we made it was sort of like a 10-year throwback to our very beginning when we first started by understanding that obstacle course racing world and making a specific sock for it. 2022, 23, we got close with the rucking groups and tried to understand what they wanted, and we made a rucking sock that was, I think, the best combat boot sock, work boot sock, rucking sock that's ever been made. And the response to that was great, and quickly grew that to be one of our, I think, our second or third top selling sock that year, and just pushed us to go even further in the rucking direction. So we did a really cool all weather hoodie that you could wear any type of elements if you're out there rucking, and then led us down the direction to work with a partner, VJ Shoes, on our first rucking boot, which just released. It's called the MudGear Speed Ruck, and just an exciting time for us to be doing something we thought would be maybe on a roadmap one day, but this allowed us to do it much faster and address this need in the rucking world, where there's a lot of military boots that are out there, but this is something that sort of blends the world of rucking with trail running and hiking, that gives it a really performance-based profile to a shoe that is also fantastic for military style rucking, marching as well. So that's really helped us in 23, and 24 we're shaping up now. We should we're only a month in, but things are shaping up that hopefully 24 could be one of our best years since inception.
Very cool. Are you ready for another loaded question?
Of course.
All right. How much would you attribute the success that you've had to hard work, strictly luck, opportunities that have come along? Where do you see that?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would be I wouldn't be I would be stupid to think that luck hasn't played a large part. um, Timing, I think is also a part of luck.
Yeah.
Having the idea at the right time. That one little moment of walking into a sock factory at the same time that a young guy who knew what our sport was all about was coming
Yeah.
back into the fold has to be a moment of luck. And there's been, millions of little moments of luck all along the way in terms of, the right person needing a job at the time that we were hiring, and that person happened to be a rock star that we would, end up spending the next 5-10 years together.
Yeah.
The first employee I ever hired just had her 10-year anniversary, and I couldn't imagine having done any of this without her in her spot. So yeah, there's things that I would call good fortune and luck that happen all along the way, but there's also no doubt that there was a ton of work involved, not just for me, but by the entire team that has helped get us to where we are.
Sounds good. Do you have any funny or interesting stories, things that happened either with a supplier maybe or at an event, or anything that comes to mind that maybe was a weird
um,
situation?
yeah, there's a bunch, but I'd say some of my um, early memories of trying to learn how to sell socks are pretty humorous. Um, I used to drag my wife out to some of the race events, and we would set up a tent and we would have a table with our sock products on it. The first couple of times, the socks were just falling all over the place because we had these cheap mannequin feet. We couldn't figure out how to get them to stand up just right. Some of them had rocks in the bottom and pebbles to try to make them stand up correctly. Some of them weren't working, and
Yeah.
it was just a comedy to see who could make them all stand up. And then we went to a larger race event, and we were getting zero foot traffic just where we were, and it was demoralizing. It's like sitting at your booth hoping somebody will come by, and eventually I grabbed one of our large sock foot models. We got one here. It was like one of these guys, but it was probably even a little taller, like a full human leg size sock model. And
Mm.
we had one of our tall compression socks on it. And so I would walk out into the main thoroughfare where people were walking by, and I would hand them the mannequin leg and say, "Hey, have you checked out our socks before?" And they would grab this huge leg and look at me like, "What the heck are you doing?"
Very
So
cool.
I, quickly found out that was not the best way to sell socks either. But trial and error, and doing a lot of crazy stuff like that just to figure out, how to sell. And also, those experiences make me very thankful for some platforms and ability to sell online as well. So I'm not having to do that every day. But there's plenty of people who are much better in the event sales area than I am. So I learned quickly to get out of there. And funny enough, when I wasn't around, it was just my wife. She sold like twice as many socks. So I need to get out of there more
Makes
often.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as much as you're willing to tell us, what are your future plans for your company? Do you intend to keep growing, stay with it, get as big as you can? Is there any thoughts about future acquisitions or anything like that, or selling off any ownership, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, good question. It goes back to my earlier comment about just being thankful to be able to do this every day. That puts me in a spot where I'm in no hurry or no rush to um, exit or sell or divest or anything like that. If I could continue running this and achieving a good net income and a good salary, then I'd love to keep doing this for a long, long, long time. Maybe at some point I start to do an even better job of delegating and get myself a little more less hands-on in the long, long term. Um, I'd say like over 10 years and where we are right now, I have put myself in a spot where we've allowed things to get too complex. So if we were to, consider selling a brand or somehow simplifying, that would be the reason, is just to be able to focus on the things that are, most impactful and where we want to put our growth. and not allow ourselves to be distracted by all the things that I've accumulated over the way. It's an easy thing, and I think it's an important thing when you're just starting your business to try to say yes to everything. Like we could do that, or we're not really in that business, but we can help figure that out for you, or we can make custom socks, or whatever it is, and that helps you figure out what does work. But at some point as you grow, you've got to refocus, recalibrate, and say, okay, do all these things still make sense? Are we overcomplicating things? And a larger company is probably much more focused on exactly what its mission is, what its product market fit is, because it's been able to cut through those things and simplify back down to the most important elements.
Have you had anyone approach you for wanting to purchase or talk about any partnership in that ownership?
Yeah, we've had that over time, and there's also just an industry of spammers who love to contact you through email and LinkedIn that are just blowing a lot of hot air about their investment firm and that sort of thing. And I don't take many or any of those calls. I think when the time comes for us, it's going to be because strategically there's something that we want to do differently, or we're just a perfect fit for somebody else strategically. But seeing this go into the hands of a PE firm or an aggregator is not my dream for the company.
Yeah. Well, let's get a little personal to wrap up, if you don't mind. So what as an entrepreneur, a lot of times you have a lot of other ideas and business ideas and thoughts, things you don't have time to look into. Is there anything that comes to mind right now, like an idea or two of businesses that you've thought about?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the signs of a true entrepreneur is that shiny object syndrome, and one way you can tell that somebody has it, especially in my world, in my e-commerce world, is ask to see the graveyard of domain names that they've purchased and not done anything with.
I've got a few of those. Yeah,
they all are brilliant ideas at the time, and maybe they still will be. And you just can't let go of them. It's like that renewal bill comes around every year. It's like, I could just let that go, but there's just that small spark in the back of your mind that maybe one day I will do something with that. So some of my favorite, that's where I would look. Some of my favorite domains that I bought thinking I would one day do something. During the pandemic, I bought backyardconcert.com, which was going to be a marketplace to be able to book your own artist to come put on a show in your backyard. It'd be huge with 50th birthday parties and
cover bands and
get your cover band. And then artists, most of the money could go directly to the artist. You'd cut out a lot of the other hands that are in the pockets. Yeah, so if somebody wants that business, let me know. I think I'm willing to let it go. I've got OBX kayaks. Outer Banks kayaks is a business I just about started with, doing some importing of kayaks when my son and I got really deep into kayak fishing for a while. And we love to, go down and do some redfish hunting down in South Carolina. And said, wow, this could be a cool business. And thought about, going that route, but no. Another one I got was, so we started doing the custom socks. And one day on a drive, my wife and I were talking about how cool it would be if some of these breweries, I mean, this is when the microbreweries were popping up all over the place, and they all had their fun and interesting artwork on their cans. I said, well, what if we approach them and put the can artwork on socks that they could sell in the front of the brewery? And I said, yeah. Oh, what about the domain Hoppy Socks, HOPPY, Hoppy Socks? And she said, look it up. So we're in the car and I'm looking up Hoppy Socks. I'm like, yes, this is a brilliant idea. And it was available, $9, and bought the domain and put up a little landing page for it. And then realized that, those businesses wanted to sell hats and maybe order a pack of 12 socks or something like that. And if I'd taken it upstream and found a way to get in with the regional distributors and larger beer companies maybe, but Hoppy Socks is another one that's sitting there waiting for one day to. The nice thing about that one is you could write off all your trips to breweries to try to make sales calls, but maybe a retirement gig. Yeah. So there's 3. Anybody can have those.
All right. They can contact you if they'd like to purchase those domain names.
One point on that I do want to make. A lot of people are worried, but before they start their business, a lot of people are worried that someone's going to take their idea. And that's probably happened somewhere in history before. Maybe Zuckerberg did or
Yeah.
whatever. But for the most part, what I've seen is that ideas are pretty cheap. You might have a great idea. Even great ideas are pretty cheap. But what's
Mhm.
rare is focus and execution.
Right.
Don't worry about somebody knowing what your idea is. If they don't have the heart and the will to go, do the work that it takes to make it happen, they're not a threat to you. You could use all the help you can get, advice and mentorship all along the way, and focus and execution is what it takes to make a business. Great idea is vaporware until it's
Yeah.
got hard work behind it.
Yeah. There's not very many unique ideas actually out there. Most of them have been
Yeah.
tried at least. So
Well, and the thing you'll find is as you start your business, you will have more ideas than you know what to do with, and you'll start your own graveyard of domain names, and you'll wonder how you never realized there were so many great business ideas out there. I mean, that's the ideas are not the hard part.
yeah. All right. When you're not working on your business, what do you like to do for fun? Do you get any time to get out there and explore the outdoors, or
Yeah.
what else do you like to do?
So here in Charlotte, we've got good weather a lot of the year, except for August. We always wonder why we lived here in August. We try to get away. So I'm a
Yeah.
family guy. My wife and I, we have two kids, got one in college now, and I've got a junior in high school. He's into soccer, so we go into a lot of his soccer games. We're Tar Heel basketball fans, so this time of the year that is always a source of joy and pain. But we follow those games a lot. Do like to get outdoors. I mentioned my son was into fishing; he still is, and we try to do that. Um, and then I realized I didn't have any really good hobbies. I think I let myself burn the burner on work a little too hard, so I'm trying to get myself into vinyl. Got myself a nice 70s
Wow.
vintage receiver turntable, and getting into that a little
Gotcha.
bit, trying to develop some hobbies more to I mean, my business has been both a lot of hard work and a hobby at times too, but had to force myself to have other interests.
Find time to unwind and
You got it.
relax a little bit. Do you have any mentors that you kind of look up to or go to for advice regarding your business?
I do, and I think that's important. Pretty early on is to find some people, especially if you're doing it on your own. Especially find some people that you can um, share the journey with, that may be in a similar spot to you. So I've had a mastermind group for a long time, a few different iterations of it. So I consider those mentors, even though they're in roughly the same position I am in terms of growing the company. Um, Going through that with other folks and being able to learn from each other is a great benefit. And then I've had a few folks who've been further down the path than me that have grown a business a lot larger than ours, or who have now sold a business or things like that I can call on from time to time. I've had a lot of good interactions with some guys that are maybe a decade or so older than me, and have been down this path. Things are always different, but some of the core things stay the same, and um, they're valuable to have as a sounding board as I'm thinking about strategy, or thinking about marketing direction, or how should I be approaching these vendors, whatever else. They ask good questions, so I would definitely encourage anyone who's starting or recently started a business to start looking for others to go along the journey with you.
All right. And whether for fun or education, what are you listening to or reading or watching right now?
Yeah. I mentioned my Tar Heels. Other than
There you
that,
go.
I do like podcasts. My podcasts tend to be work related. I've got a lot of e-commerce podcasts that I listen to, and I think I started that as a habit. Even when I had my career job, I would listen to podcasts in my industry on the way to work, on the way from work, and that was a lot of my early education about e-commerce, because I didn't have the background. But there were other folks who were building e-commerce businesses, and to this day, some of my favorite podcasts are ones that I was listening to even way back then. E-commerce Fuel is a big one. The Ecom Crew I've been able to get to know some of those guys over time, being in some different forums with them. And there's a new one, or not too new, but a growing one out of the F3 world. Good friends with Brian Jodas, Hello Kitty, that runs the COT podcast. That's another one that I always have queued up as well.
Gotcha. All right. Well, you may not have thought about this recently, but as a child, did you exhibit any tendencies that you think would predicate you towards entrepreneurship?
Yeah, for sure. I can only speak for my own experience, but I kind of feel like people who want to run a business know it pretty early. Yeah. I would say that I had no real reason to be like that. I don't know if you're born that way or what, but my family, my dad was director of a library system. My mom was editor of a newspaper. Neither one had a lot of business experience or business school or entrepreneurial bend, but for some reason it caught my attention early. And I remember I had a grass cutting business. I started selling T-shirts in high school. So I kind of haven't gotten too far away from that, selling T-shirts way back then, and now performance. That just the fabric, the nylon, and poly, the materials have changed, but it's still the same thing.
Business. Yeah.
Right. And then as I got into college, it's such a dorky thing to do, but even as I'm in college and then going into business school, I used to keep a journal of business ideas, just things that hit me as, oh man, here's one I could do, or here's one I could do. And there were some good ones along the way, and it wasn't the right time, or it wasn't the perfect idea along the way. But I feel like I've wanted to have my own business since as long as I can remember, and just kept doing things to give myself the flexibility to pull the trigger when the right one came along. So I would say, yeah, I had obvious tendencies from early.
I think that's a common trait with entrepreneurs, that they probably start out with some of those things like that. Well, let's do a few rapid fire questions real quick. You just tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. What is your favorite weather?
Favorite weather is sunny on the beach.
Sunny on the beach. Favorite social media app?
Oh, I kind of have a distaste for all of them right now.
Understandable.
But if I had to pick one, gosh, I probably I probably dislike Instagram the least right now.
There we go. Do you wear socks with sandals?
Never. Slides maybe, sandals no.
Favorite snack?
Gosh, chips and salsa.
All righty. Well, thank you for spending the time with me today. How can people find out more about your business, your website you mentioned? MudGear.com.
That's the best introduction. MudGear.com will show you all about our socks and apparel for outdoor athletes. Some cool stuff there. You can check out the new ruck shoes there. If you are the kind of person that sweats and gets your car seat dirty, SeatShield.com is where to hit that one. And if you got a soccer player like my son who's into club soccer, they will know what grip socks are. The World Cup athletes, the Premier League athletes, they're all starting to wear these special grip socks that give you more traction and touch on the ball. And if the pros are wearing it, the kids want it. So you can find those at gripsocks.com.
All right.
And of course, anybody involved in F3 or FIA, hopefully you know about the F3 Gear store. That's at f3gear.com and fiagear.com.
All right, excellent. Any offers or sales coming up that we should know about, or coupon?
Yeah, we've got the new ruck shoes have a sale, and in fact, we've got a sale on some of our socks right now as well. Code Made Tougher, all one word, Made Tougher, will get you a discount at MudGear.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you. Yep.